And we'll begin with the East Lancashire derby. A Zian Fleming header saw Burnley beat Blackburn 1-0. 3 word reviews for Burnley. Caroline says, pride of Lancashire. Andy says, 3 points Park. Mr. Biscuits says, 5,397 and counting, in reference to the number of days since Blackburn last beat Burnley. For Blackburn, Dave on our Patreon says, fuck off Burnley. We predicted it would be a cagey game in the preview show, Justin, and it was exactly that. The first 67 minutes of this game saw just 7 shots, but ultimately it was Burnley who came out on top.
We talk about cagey. It was a moment it was a lapse piece of concentration that saw Zian Fleming get his opportunity. I think it was Tronstad who switched off marking him and allowed Fleming with the free header, because that's how tight this game was. It was one moment where defenders switch off, and like we said, it was a very tepid game, very tepid first half. Neither side had a shot on target in the first 45 minutes, so I imagine everyone tuning in for a blood and thunder classic were very disappointed come 1:15 on Saturday. But I think defensively, Burnley were great. They were great. They marshalled the game. They managed the game well, and they nullified Blackburn. And that's where I think the narrative probably needs to shift with Burnley. They control the game without the opposition thinking they're controlling.
Yeah. It was hardly domination from Burnley. We can say that much for sure. They only had 4 shots in the entire game. But the bottom line is that when Burnley go ahead, they're an absolute nightmare to play against. They've led 14 times this season and only failed to win 1 of those games. They know how to kill a game off, and this was an example of it. I mentioned for the cross by Bashir Humphreys for the goal. It was exceptional and really punished Blackburn when they were least expecting it, I suppose. And then the limbs after Fleming headed it in were sensational. It was your classic derby game, really, because it was cagey. Had loads of players kicking each other. We were saying in the previous show how referees are a lot more lenient than you think when it comes to derby games. I have no idea how there were only 4 cards given out in this one. It was a great game if you're a fan of the dark arts, and if you like them, you'd have certainly liked Zian Fleming's antics after the game. He grabbed the corner flag, put his Burnley shirt over the top of where the Blackburn badge obviously is at the top, and paraded it around in front of the Burnley fans, Justin. And the Blackburn fans weren't too chuffed, were they?
I can imagine why. I remember being a Derby fan, taking it back a few years. I think it was 2009. Nathan Tyson, when he played for Forest, did exactly the same thing, and it all kicked off. Nearly started a riot, and the Derby were the away team at that point. So I can't imagine what the home fans are thinking. I mean, fair enough for displaying some restraint for not getting onto the pitch. I know it's a bad thing, but the amount of anger you must feel as a supporter seeing that is incredible. But yeah, it's an interesting decision from Fleming. Not one that I support. It's funny, but maybe that may be taking it too far. I do realise I might be slightly hypocritical, considering I lapped up Quadro Bar doing the Fortnite emote. But in the emotions of a rivalry, probably better to play it safe with your celebrations at an away ground.
Yeah. I could see what you mean, because if I was a Blackburn fan, my head would have been on Mars. I would have completely lost it. And that's the beauty of derby games, isn't it? Someone gets the bragging rights, and it means you do stuff like this to really rub it in, and it really, really hurts, particularly because, Justin, it means Burnley's unbeaten run against their big rivals continues. It's been 15 years since Blackburn last beat them, guaranteed to be even longer if Burnley get automatically promoted. And that will just make this result sting even more if you're of a Blackburn persuasion, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that question we were asking in the preview show on Friday, in that, would Blackburn fans take a win here? I mean, I imagine after seeing Fleming celebrate with the corner flag, you definitely would take a win and sacrifice a playoff place, just to get that, just to take that 3 points back and eradicate that awful record. But look, yeah, it's a painful one for Rovers fans, and are they going to have to wait longer now? Because obviously next season Burnley could well be playing in the Premier League. It's a painful one, but I think if you're going to take some solace from it, Blackburn I thought performed pretty well. They were solid. Again, it was a cagey game. Neither side was exactly adventurous going forward, but I think Blackburn went toe to toe with a very good side, and I think that's another sort of tip in the hat for John Eustace.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Justin. I was just thinking, do we need to be gentle with Blackburn fans here? But I imagine they've all skipped past this part of the podcast by now.
Yeah, they're going to the next game, I think.
Yeah, they've moved on by this stage. The sad thing is, for Blackburn fans, is I think this was one of the best opportunities they've had to end Burnley's run in a long time, and they've not managed to take it. I think a point would have been a decent result for Rovers, but just ending that run would have been so sweet for them. And to end up watching your big rivals celebrating at your ground again must have really hurt. And I guess the only hope now is that they face them in the playoffs to really land a double whammy for them in May. But we'll see whether that happens or not. Got to say, though, it was nearly the perfect weekend for Burnley, really, not just because of the result, but also because they've managed to make an advance on Leeds after they dropped points, and that means they're just 1 point behind them now in second. And just to top things off a bit more, Justin, they've also re-signed Ashley Barnes. The 35-year-old left Norwich by mutual consent so he could rejoin his old side for the remainder of the season. Because why not, Justin?
Yeah, because why not? It's such a left field signing. But look, he's a good character. He's a legend at Burnley. I think striking wise, or as a striker, he's not really going to offer a lot or not as much as players that are already going to be there. But having his personality around is going to be so important, especially for Scott Parker, who, Burnley are a pretty young side. They've got a lot of young players around the squad. I wouldn't be surprised if he retires in the summer. The most telling thing about this signing is realising, and you won't know anything about this because you don't know anything about cars, he drives an estate. And he just comes across as a man who drives an estate. I don't know why. But there'll be a lot of listeners who completely understand that point.
Doesn't mean anything to me.
No,
because as you say, I know nothing about cars. It's got to be pointed out, when Burnley came down a couple of seasons ago, they were signing young players with a view to the long term. And this season they've signed a 35-year-old Ashley Barnes, a 32-year-old John Egan, and a 29-year-old Josh Laurent, and several players on loan. And yes, they have signed some young players, but I don't really know what the plan is here. Maybe it's just vibes, Justin. Maybe that's what the transfer strategy is now. Who needs one when you've just got vibes? So, let's get Sam Vokes and Phil Bardsley back to just fully embrace vibes. But on a serious note, I'm looking forward very much to seeing Ashley Barnes and Hannibal Medry in the same team, two of the biggest wind-up merchants together on the same side.
Another moment of stupidity from Hannibal midweek. That was really frustrating. Actually, it'd have been incredible to have him available for this game. I just realised this. I don't know why.
Just in case we wanted a bit more shithousery in this game. But those two on the same pitch would be like Batman and Superman joining forces, won't it? But I guess you could say he brings something to the changing room, and I accept that. But what does a 35-year-old Ashley Barnes still offer on the pitch? I'm not sure, other than shithousery and vibes, of course. But it's made Burnley fans very happy seeing him back. So that's nice. Just from a neutral perspective, though, I'm unsure about it. But what a big win this is for Burnley. Not just because it's against your big rivals, but also because it means a great deal in the grand scheme of things for the Championship season, especially after Leeds dropped points from a winning position for the second time in 4 days. They drew 3-3 with Hull City after 2 late goals. 3-word reviews for Hull. Miles says, grit, determination, Abu. Luke says Abu Kamara redemption. Premium Tailender says hostage video worked. Finn Bobs says love you Meslier. For Leeds, Richley on our Patreon says oh no Elan. Daz says please drop Meslier. James says fuck's sake Meslier. Tom says stupid fucking Meslier. You get the gist of it. We had a lot of 3-word reviews from Leeds fans along those kind of lines, and it means Leeds have only dropped last season Leeds only dropped points from winning positions on 2 occasions in the entirety of the campaign. They've now matched that tally in 4 days, Justin. And everyone of a Leeds United persuasion seems to be pointing the finger at one man, which is unfortunate because it's never nice to see one player taking all the blame. But it is now time for us to have the difficult Elan Meslier conversation, Justin. Because God knows what he's doing for the second goal. Maybe should have done better for the first and third too. It's not the first time he's cost Leeds United this season, is it?
No, a very handy compilation appeared on social media of all of his mistakes, which was quite an interesting watch. Obviously, there was he's at fault for the Brad Potts goal against Preston, beating at his near post. Portsmouth, Lasse Sorensen beat him at the near post. Let's not talk about the Sunderland one because that's the biggest cock-up I think a goalkeeper's ever made at professional level. And he's at fault for 2 goals here. I think it's the first one where Kamara's through and he's just caught in no man's land. And I think that is one of the worst positions as a goalkeeper, especially as he's not a goalkeeper who's known for coming that far off his line either. Confidence-wise, he's completely shot, isn't he? You need to start to have a conversation with him. I think Daniel Farke's position on these sort of things is quite stubborn. Very, very stubborn. He stood by him after the Sunderland mistake, and he's spoke about it previously, since then as well. I think now is the time to take him out of the team and, allow, I think they've got Cardiff, haven't they? Just allow someone else to come in. It could be anybody. They don't concede many shots. You could literally put me in goal and I might do a better job than Ilhan Meslier.
Let's not get carried away now. But yeah, I mean, I always say on this podcast, the biggest compliment you can pay a goalkeeper is that they are individually winning points for their team over the course of a season. But when you've got a goalkeeper doing the exact opposite, it's the most stinging of criticisms you can possibly have. And look, Leeds have only conceded 19 goals this season in 26 games, which is great, but I've also seen a video on social media just of a compilation of all the goals Leeds have conceded this season, and the number of goals which have been his fault are astonishing. I counted at least a third are undeniably ones he should be saving, and you could make a fair argument for plenty of others as well. And if you take out those goals, Leeds would be miles clear at the top of the table. It's as simple as that, isn't it? I haven't been massively impressed by Leeds this season, despite their position in the table, but they undeniably would be miles clear. So now Daniel Farke's got a decision to make because he has stayed loyal for a long time. But how many mistakes can happen before you go, right, enough is enough?
Well, he's costing Leeds goals. He's costing them points. I think that and that's the very sort of top line view, but also it swings momentum in games as well. If you're 2-0 up and he makes a mistake, you're then, as a defender, you're very wary, and it sort of it becomes a distraction. It becomes
Quick
a source
word,
of
by the way, Justin, for the second goal, Joe Rodon's reaction is absolutely brilliant. He is just screaming in Ilhan Meslier's face, going, "What are you doing?" But that kind of follows on from your point about the lack of confidence the defenders must have in their own goalkeeper.
It becomes a distraction, doesn't it? And that's it's hugely problematic for Leeds. They've got one of the best defences. They've got the over than Burnley now. I think the second best defence in the league, and when you are conceding shots, you're shitting yourself as to whether or not they're going to go in. It's ridiculous. It's you're gunning for promotion, you're gunning for a title. You have to be quite cutthroat in this position, unfortunately. And Meslier could well be a victim of that because, as I say, he's costing Leeds too many goals and too many points.
The thing is, as well, you mentioned a second ago, they've got a very good goalkeeper in Cardiff who's just sat on the bench and must be thinking, when on earth am I going to get my turn? So it's going to be fascinating to see whether Daniel Farke sticks with him or not. But onto the game itself, Justin, it was a thriller and a great fight back by Hull City.
Yeah, it was. And I think this is what we've been saying about Ruben Selles. Results haven't been spectacular, but they've been developing really good habits, really good traits. And they've started to form since he was appointed, and none more so than this. The character to bounce back, going 3-1 down into the second half, to keep going, and despite, as I say, going 2 goals down, is a tremendous example of him turning around the players' confidence. I don't think they're playing scintillating football, but as I say, the confidence the players are starting to develop is there to see, and no more so than Abu Kamara because of the week he's had, and to come into this game with 2 goals, and he's taking his goals very, very well. Again, he's another example of what Ruben Selles is doing. We're not seeing incredible football on the pitch just yet, but we're seeing players really turn around, and it's a far cry from what it was 3 months ago. Yeah,
and I don't think it's overdramatic to say that the Hull from 3 months ago probably would have got thrashed here, and that just goes to show how much Ruben Selles has reinvigorated this side. There's still a lot of improving they need to do, don't get me wrong, but it's clear to see there is an improvement, and it's good to see. I mean, Mason Burstow's pass for the first Hull goal was absolutely sublime, and good to see Abu Kamara getting a brace here after a strange week for him. So for anyone who's not kept kept track of this. He got a lot of stick from Hull fans for not tracking back enough for Middlesbrough's goal in their loss on New Year's Day. And then he put 2 applauding emojis on the post of a Portsmouth player after they won on New Year's Day, which angered Hull fans because they're obviously relegation rivals. But then we had this bizarre press conference in the week where Kamara was sat next to Ruben Sellers and essentially made to apologise over a very awkward few minutes. So I'm glad he's managed to end the week on a positive, Justin, but what a strange decision by the club to make him sit there and do that. It was very weird, wasn't it?
It's probably a strange decision because we don't see it very often. It's not something you do get, especially in modern football, but especially it being so public and being very out in the open. And in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a serious offence by Abu Kamara. It's just really bad timing and probably bad taste in the face of a defeat. But I think it comes on the back of a couple of very poor performances, fans being very, very apoplectic about him, and very frustrated with him. So I think Ruben Sellers has come out. He probably knows Abu Kamara on a much deeper level, despite only being there for a handful of weeks. He knows he's a good player. He knows he's a good personality. He just wants that to be, outwardly put out there. I think it's strange because we've not seen it very often at all. But it's clearly worked. Sometimes you do need these things, I think. And whilst it was a bit of a weird one, it's worked. What can you say about that?
Justin, it looked like a hostage video.
It did look like a hostage video.
It was one of the strangest things I've ever seen. And to be fair to Kamara, I listened to it. I think he handled it well and explained well why he did it. But it does feel like someone's making a mountain out of a molehill here because he's essentially been hung out to dry. I don't know if it was Ruben Sellers' decision or what, but it seemed completely needless to me, especially when up until this Leeds game, it's a guy who has struggled in a Hull City shirt. So, a very strange moment. I just think, just let him play football. That's the bottom line here. Who cares what they do on social media? It's just a completely different thing. But a very strange moment. But look, Hull, valuable point for them. Leeds stay top, but it has meant teams have gained ground on them. One of them, of course, being Sheffield United, who got back to winning ways with a 2-1 win away at Watford. 3-word reviews for Sheffield United. Oscar says proper Blades performance. Ali says backflip Brooks. For Watford, Hazza says sign some players. Not the cleanest of wins for the Blades, I think that's fair to say, but considering their recent wobble, this was a big 3 points, Justin.
Yeah, huge 3 points. And again, I think it's another good performance from them. Yes, it's not, a performance that we've seen, sort of October, November time. But you've just got to contextualise the injuries they've had, the knocks they suffered. They've turned a game that could have been a draw into a win here. And I think that's the character of the team you've got to praise. And I can't remember who put it in the 3-word review, but typical Blades performance. I think that is the best way to sum this game up and this win up for Sheffield United. They're down to bare bones. Tom Davies was excellent, for example, despite not being fit. Andre Brooks coming through the academy and excelling this season, scoring a beautiful winner. Sidey Peck as well, putting an incredible display in central midfield. And despite some bad results, they've been putting in a shift with their performances. So getting wins like this, and youth players or players coming from the academy scoring the winners, it's just the rewards they deserve. It was a good 3 points.
Yeah, really good 3 points and a really big 3 points. They really had to grind this one out. And Watford did have a couple of good chances to equalise in the second half, but ultimately Sheffield United held on, and they won't care how the points come at this stage because they have suffered a fair few injuries. And the mindset seems to be, let's just weather this storm and see where we're at the other side of it. I enjoyed Daniel Backman in the Watford goal trying to do a Cruyff to him, and he's got a Sheffield United player about a yard away from him. I'm sure many Watford fans were saying in unison, just get it out. Because that was an interesting decision
taking
from
the
him.
piss,
Yeah, not a great decision, Daniel. But Andre Brooks was great. I think he's a really exciting young player. Took his goal very nicely. Callum O'Hare, someone I've given a fair bit of criticism to this season. He had a good game, and his assist for the first goal was really nice. And Sally Peck and Tom Davies in midfield, two brilliant performances from them as well. I think Peck in particular is a really good player. So a great win for the Blades to keep them well in the hunt. And we're expecting them to be amongst the busiest teams in this window, Justin. They might be kicking off their business with a reunion because Ben Brereton Diaz is reportedly set to rejoin them on loan. He was, of course, at Bramall Lane last season, went to Southampton in the summer. It's barely featured. And with Sheffield United in desperate need for a striker, you'd have to say this makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think it would be a great signing. I think if he stays fit, which shouldn't be a problem, by the way, you can't really discount injuries, especially at Sheffield United. If he stays fit, he's the difference between a playoff place and the automatics. I think he can edge those tight games, as he showed at Blackburn a couple of seasons ago, where he was very much outperforming XG, which obviously put Blackburn fans on the streets of the pitchforks hunting for you, Ryan. But I think Blades probably do need to do a lot more business than Ben Brereton Diaz, but it'd be a very good start bringing him in.
Completely needless hark back to 3 seasons ago, but that's fine. And I agree with what you say there, Justin. Well, most of what you say. I think he's exactly what Sheffield United need. Big physical striker who's mobile, knows where the back of the net is. So fits the bill exactly of what Chris Wilder's looking for. And to be fair to him, he scored 6 goals in 14 games in the Prem last season, which isn't a bad tally at all when he was playing in one of the worst Premier League teams of all time. Mm-hmm. So I like this move. I'm not usually a fan of moves where it's player X does well in the Championship, player X gets a move to a top flight side, player X struggles for game time and then comes back down to the Championship. I think this one makes sense for all parties. Dwight Gale may be an exception to the rule, but quite often I think there's been plenty of occasions where it's not worked out. So Ben Brereton Diaz, I think, is a very good move for Sheffield United. 3 straight losses for Watford, Justin. The first time that's happened under Tom Cleverley. Do you get the sense their early season form might finally be tailing off?
Yeah, it definitely is tailing off. I think they overperformed at the start of the season. So I think it's natural to expect a drop-off. The squad isn't good enough. I don't think it'll be a huge drop-off because the games they're playing, they're tight, aren't they? They're very, very tight. There's not a huge amount separating them from most teams they've played so far this season, both in wins and defeats. So I guess there are 2 ways you can really approach that. You can be quite happy you are sort of edging those tight games, but also you're probably frustrated that you're not coming away from other games with a little bit more. Watford are very just balanced in that sense. So it's been a bumpy run of results, and despite those tight games not coming off the other side of them, I think they're just pretty much beginning a new journey for them. Actually, Tom Cleverley summed it up very well. He said it's one team knew how to win that game, the other team is new to winning. Obviously Watford new to this sort of form because the last few years have been pretty dire.
Well, I did mention on Friday how I was becoming more and more of a Watford skeptic, and I'll explain why. I mean, first off, got to say Tom Cleverley has done what he's done so far this season has been outstanding. Keep in mind, a lot of people, including ourselves, were tipping them for relegation, and for them to be in this position past halfway through the season is remarkable. But, and I know you're not a fan of this phrase, Justin, I think they are in a false position because the underlying data has them down as more of a lower mid-table side anyway, which is never a good start. But their home form has been massive this season. 29 of the 37 points they've won this season have been at Vicarage Road. And just from watching their home games, it seemed like many of their performances weren't as good as the results suggest. So I think they were overdue a home loss. Still quite surprised that it came. The first one came against Cardiff of all teams, but now they've had 2 on the bounce. So if that's deteriorating, then that's a problem because their away form is really not great at all. But it's not just that. It's personnel too, because can we really see Vikumbeyo replicating his goal tally of 9 goals in the second half of the season? No chance. Ido Kayembe's the next highest scorer, and he scored half of his goals in his first 2 games. So I'm not sure where the goals are going to regularly come from. And another big problem is so much of Watford's play goes through Georgie Chakvetadze. And if he leaves this window, that's a massive, massive blow for them. So I think Watford are going to drop down the table. I don't know how far, but I'm pretty sure they won't stay around the playoff picture. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, I think the playoffs is always going to be a stretch, not only because obviously you mentioned their performances probably haven't quite aligned with the numbers they're creating, but also the squad's just not good enough. It's not deep enough either. I think that's just the top line you got to take from this. They need personnel to come in January. Well, is that going to happen? Probably not. I think they're about 4 players short from mounting a convincing challenge for the top 6. But if Tom Cleverley can find a formula that he found in the first, I would guess 8 or 9 games of this season, where they did look really good, then yeah, I think they can go far. But I think Tom Cleverley is the one that's propping Watford up, as opposed to them being a very convincing sort of squad and team. So I think Tom Cleverley is the big asset here, as opposed to Watford, and he needs help. He needs help. I think that's the key thing. They're one of the clubs that if they're going to mount a top half, even a top half finish, they need players.
Well, the issue is just, is he going to get players? Because Watford's hierarchy have made it quite clear that they're not too keen to put more money into the club. So how much extra reinforcements Tom Cleverley is going to get this window, I would say not many. Right, let's go on to our predictions from the Friday preview show, brought to you by SBK. Our bet builder was on Blackburn v Burnley, and a £10 stake was due to return £75. We had Blackburn to have under 11.5 shots. They had 10, so that was a winner. Under 5.5 cards, there were just 4, so another winner. Under 2.5 goals, there was obviously just the 1. And we had Blackburn double chance. So blooming close to another winning bet builder, which is a massive shame, Justin. So no luck there, but onto our multiple. A £10 stake on our multiple was due to return £115. We had my banker of Sunderland to beat Portsmouth. That was a winner. We had Blackburn double chance. Obviously, no winner there. We had Justin's banker of Stoke to beat Plymouth. That was a draw. And we had Justin's outsider of Watford to beat Sheffield United, who lost. It's your problem, Justin.
I didn't
Two and a half of the picks in there were yours. Do you not like winning?
I point the finger at producer Finn again. He picked the outsider.
No, you can't deflect it. 2.5 of the picks were yours.
I never chose to put it in the bet builder. I'm just happy going along with this thing we call a podcast. It's producer Finn that's putting me under pressure here, not me.
It's like when a manager is under pressure and he starts blaming the referees. That's what I'm getting here, because I mean, your banker was still in the multiple and that was going to be in there no matter what. So yeah, Justin Peach has let us down this week with the multiple, but we'll be back with another round of picks a week on Friday, because obviously it's the FA Cup this weekend, in our next preview show brought to you by SBK. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about a ridiculous turnaround at Norwich and Middlesbrough struggling for not the first time in the past few weeks. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and it's now time for us to reveal the winner of our latest edition of Jameson's Weekend Hero, because every single week we're asking you to nominate a fellow Championship fan that you believe deserves recognition. Now, that could be someone who drove you to a recent away day, or it could be a friend/relative who got you into supporting your club in the first place. Whatever it is, we want to find out. So to nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero from this weekend, send us a voice note now on WhatsApp explaining your nomination. The number is in the show notes, and of course, if we pick you, you'll win a bottle of Jameson to share with your winner, just like this week's nomination. And it's from Phil, who wanted to nominate his brother Tony.
Hi, Virgins. Love the pod. I would like to nominate my brother Tony. We've been going to Derby games together for 20 years now together. Through thick and thin, seeing some absolute terrible stuff, some good stuff, but happiest day of my life we've shared together is when Derby beat Leeds away in the second leg of the playoffs in 2019, and that will never, ever, ever be topped. Thanks again. See you, boys. Bye.
Thank you, Phil. What an absolute wonderful moment there, Justin. You were at that Leeds Derby game, weren't you?
Yeah, it was limbs everywhere, literally. Or not literally. Oh, no, there was, because everyone's got limbs. But it was absolutely bonkers. It was absolutely bonkers. And yeah, again, it was one of the best moments I've experienced watching football. So I can't imagine. I was there with my two mates, but yeah, sharing that moment with your brother, who you've been going to games with through thick and thin. Yeah, even better moment.
That's one of the beauty Oh, that's one of the beautiful things, Justin, about going to these games when you are a Championship fan, because every Championship fan knows that you have highs and lows. When you're in the Premier League, usually it's just high, 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 high. So when you have those highs, they're not as beautiful. They're not as sweet, not as beautiful, not as sweet as when they happen when you're watching your team toil week in, week out. So that's why I can fully emphasise Phil's point there. So that's why we should raise a glass of Jameson ginger and lime to Tony, this week's Jameson weekend hero. And just now going to have a quick swig in honour of Big Tone. Exceptional, as always. And remember, you can nominate your Jameson weekend hero right now by sending us a voice note on WhatsApp. The number is in the show notes. So we just need 60 seconds explaining your nomination, and you'll be in with a chance of winning a bottle of delicious Jameson. You must be over 18 to enter, UK only, and T's and C's apply. Let's go back to some of the action from the weekend then, and 2 injury time goals from Manquar Forson. So Norwich City come from a goal down to win 2-1 against Coventry. 3-word reviews for Norwich. Lewis says last minute winner. Tance says a Manquar bloody Forson. Shane says super Manquar Forson. For Coventry, Dees says professional bottle jobs. Tom says sell the squad. Yeah, incredible scenes here, Justin, topped off with a pylon, and in the celebrations, they flattened one of the advertising hoardings, which I think is the absolute epitome of scenes.
Yeah, if you want, as a group of players and even supporters coming together to celebrate a last-minute winner, if you can crush the advertising board, I think is the pinnacle of last-minute celebrations and limbs and everything. And also a middle finger to capitalism. But the scenes, I just feel like we've not seen a lot of that this season so far. Just moments like that, as spectacular as it was with the way that Norwich got back into the game with the equaliser and then the last minute winner. It was just beautiful. And as I said, I don't think we see it. I have seen it very often this season. I don't know if it's because just naturally we just see it become more and more sort of passionate as the season goes along. But yeah, I push everyone to go and watch the goals and the scenes at the end of the game because they were brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the scenes we really shouldn't have had, because how this was 1-0 for so long, I don't know. Yeah. Norwich absolutely peppered the Coventry goal in that second half. So it wasn't like Norwich didn't deserve something in the game. They would have liked to have got those 2 goals a lot sooner than they did. But yeah, Manquar Forson with his first 2 goals for Norwich. And what a time to get them as well. He was fairly happy after the game as well, Justin. This was his reaction on Norwich City's official Twitter.
Manquar, what a moment for you. Where does that rank in your football career so far?
I think this feeling is, I really can't explain. I can't explain this feeling. I'm so happy for this moment.
We might need to start that again. Because you can't say
One of the things I love about that, Justin, is he says why after he gets told he can't say that. You can't really pick it up there, but in the video you can see him say it. It's just good stuff, particularly because he's someone who's struggled a bit this season for Norwich. He's reported to have cost around £4 million in the summer. He's been a bit in and out of the team. So seeing these goals mixed with the joy on his face afterwards, I love this kind of stuff, me.
Yeah, being so fucking happy. To leave yourself speechless after that is incredible. You needed moments. He needed those moments, didn't he? Probably more than the goals. And as you say, Norwich paid a decent fee for him in the summer, and he's yet to get going. He's yet to get really consistent and settled. So the idea of him being the man in the moment is going to do his confidence the world of good. And he was the sole reason for those incredible scenes at the end. He was the hero, and I think that what that can do for a player is huge. So props to him. I hope he can take this on, because just the way he conducted his interview there, he's a legend in my book now.
Yeah, if we get more clips like that, then I'll certainly be cheering him on. And hopefully it does lead to him kicking on, because they clearly hold him in quite high regard at Norwich if they're willing to fork out a fair bit of money for him. So yeah, be interesting to see how he gets on. Norwich have a bit bit of form all of a sudden, just in 10 points from an available 12, which is a great turnaround from them after just 2 wins from 13. How long this form is going to last, I'm not sure, because they've got Leeds and Sheffield United away after the FA Cup next weekend, which is far from ideal. And they look set to lose Boya Sainz for a spell after he was charged by the FA for allegedly spitting. They have signed Lewis Dobbin on loan from Aston Villa, though, and Josh Sargent back in training, which is probably the biggest news you can give Norwich fans right now. So a lot going on at Carrow Road after the past few days. Be interesting to see what they do in January, actually, because their transfer business tends to be a bit more niche than most other Championship clubs. So it'd be interesting to see how they get on. But it is just 1 win in 5 for Frank Lampard's Coventry, Justin. Of course, contractually obliged to call them that. There hasn't been a vast improvement since Robins left, has there? That's for sure. And it would be easy for us to lay into Lampard again, Justin. We've made our feelings on him very known at this stage. But do you think the players need to take more responsibility here? Because we're on to the second manager now and things haven't improved.
Yeah, definitely. And there's an area of that when Mark Robins got sacked, because Mark Robins should have never have been sacked, really, because the way they were losing games was quite disappointing. And as you say, Lampard's run so far, he's won just 3 of his 9 games, and as you say, things haven't got better. And now we're seeing players with moves or linked away with moves like Milan van Eerwyk, and as you're right, they've both been linked with moves away. So I'm not saying that's going to be a distraction for them. That's not the reason why they're not playing well, because they've not been playing well all season. But you are right; they do have to take some more responsibility. I think this is the big thing that hasn't been addressed, and that's perhaps a big issue with the recruitment policy under Doug King. Is it's very focused on getting players who are going to bring value to the squad in a couple of years' time. The leadership's not there anymore. The old guard's gone, and that's what they're missing. That's really what they're missing. The McFadsens, the Goddens, the Liam Kellys, players like that. I think whilst they're not going to be play a huge part in the squad on a week-to-week basis, just having them in the dressing room is huge, and they're missing that influence, I think.
Yeah, well, I have seen a lot of Coventry fans say the squad of players isn't good enough to match the top 6 ambitions those at the club have, which I could not disagree with more, because I think the talent is definitely there, which is why we infamously, rather foolishly, tipped them for big things at the start of the season. Whether the team spirit is there is another question, because there's a lot of players here who have played a lot better in very recent seasons than they are doing this season. So why have all these players dropped off at the same time? Is it down to leadership? Is it down to something else? I don't know. And while I don't think the Lampardian tactics are necessarily helping things, it is bizarre how much this Coventry team continue to underperform with very little sign that things are going to improve, which just makes me think there must be more going on behind the scenes than what we've been told already this season. So, yeah, strange situation at Coventry City. And whether things improve anytime soon, I have no idea. Coventry have been linked with Rob Holding, which is sort of like Lord Lucan walking into your pub and ordering a pint. So that would be nice if it happens. But to be honest, completely forgot he existed. So we'll see if that happens. It feels a bit strange moving on from Coventry to talk about Mark Robins, but he was held to a goalless draw in his first game in charge of Stoke against Plymouth. For 3-word reviews for Plymouth, Matt on our Patreon says, clean sheet away. Callum says, completely rattled Stoke. Yeah, just Plymouth's 3rd away point of the season, just their 2nd clean sheet of the season. Stoke had 18 shots to Plymouth's 2. I think Plymouth were happy with a point here, Justin.
Yeah, so they should be. It was a battling performance. Something we haven't seen probably on more than 3 occasions under Rooney this season in both home and away. So I think it's a really important point. It's a really important clean sheet because they conceded a lot of goals, to be very blunt. I know Stoke aren't the most difficult of opposition, but they were tremendous. I saw an appetite to dig in here. Something that, as I say, hasn't been a common sight. That's the reason why Plymouth are bottom of the table. They were unbeaten post Wayne Rooney. I'm not saying that's a finger to be pointed at Wayne Rooney, but they've shown a little bit more character in the last couple of games than probably what we've seen for 2/3 of the season so far, which is quite a damning, I think, statement on the previous manager. Yeah, well, Kevin Nanscoville, the caretaker manager, was asked about time wasting after the game, and he said he was making no apologies of it. So he was at least being honest. But yeah, it's really quite hard to offer a great assessment about Mark Robins' first game when it was essentially attack v defence for
the entirety of it, based purely off the fact that it's Plymouth at home. You would say it is 2 drop points, but it is Mark Robbins' first game in charge with only a matter of days with the players. So I suppose we can let him off with that in mind, Justin.
Yeah, you can let him off. I think you've got to, I wouldn't say point the finger at the players, but as I was saying in the previous show, which is why I was so confident about Stoke, Ryan Shawcross has put in a very good foundation for Mark Robbins to come in, and they've been great. They've looked clinical. They've needed to be. Obviously, Tom Cannon getting a 90th minute winner. Over the festive period, it's kind of breathed confidence in the team, but they just, I wouldn't say look flat, but they just didn't quite have the same oomph. I'm not saying that's down to Mark Robbins. It might have just been one game too far, which is always, I think it's the case with a lot of teams. So, yeah, it's probably a little bit disappointing they come away with a win, but it's a clean sheet. It's a point at home. Not the best debut, but it's a solid one, if you like.
Plymouth still 3 points adrift at the bottom of the table. It's been an interesting few days for them because their director of football, Neil Dewsnip, is set to leave. He was behind the appointments of Ian Foster and Wayne Rooney, so not particularly a surprise that he seems to be on his way out. Plymouth have also broken their club record transfer fee to sign Ghanaian midfielder Michael Baidoo from Elfsborg in Sweden, which is interesting. Keen to see how he gets on. And as far as their manager situation is concerned, it's being reported by Plymouth Live that the club wants to appoint their new man this week. So watch this space in that regard. Stephen Schumacher is the bookies' favourite currently for a nice homecoming. But I wanted to bring this to the table, Justin, because The Athletic have done a piece on Wayne Rooney's time at Plymouth. He's not getting a break from us, even though he's gone now, is he? It says staff at Argyle had felt Rooney had been drifting for the last 2 months of his reign and questioned how invested he was in the job. It also says Plymouth's players were eager for a change as they didn't feel Rooney was doing enough to change things and shore them up defensively away from home, which, you know, it's quite a scathing indictment of Wayne Rooney's managerial reign at Plymouth, Justin, but it's also not too surprising for me.
No, it isn't. There was a comment in there that said that he delegated all of the coaching at Birmingham to his coaches, but at Plymouth he became more hands-on, and ultimately Plymouth looked worse than that Birmingham team, didn't they? It was, I think, it's not a good look for him as a coach or as a manager. And I was going to mention something a couple of weeks back about Rooney's appetite for the commitment to be a manager at this level. I was going to question his personal life and his lifestyle, but decided to venture away from it. But this Athletic piece actually confirmed it, because a lot of what they were saying about his, dropping commitments, club commitments, etc., to go do things with his family and whatnot, I think again shone a light on Wayne Rooney's. I think his commitment to really, really get dug in here. So again, you compare it to Frank Lampard, for example, he never let the celebrity of Frank Lampard get in the way of him being a manager or a head coach. Tabloids tried, but Rooney, however, found himself again in just too many scenarios where stories could be manipulated. And I think that's another thing that probably needs to be mentioned.
Yeah, one of the commitments you mentioned there is he was meant to do like a secret visit to a school and then cancelled on the day. So it's stuff like that which just makes you think, come on, Wayne, mate. So yeah, it's a pretty damning report, really, on Wayne Rooney's managerial career. But as we've alluded to, probably will be his last one, unfortunately, for Waz's managerial career. Let's go to Middlesbrough, who have won just one of their last 5 after being held to a 1-1 draw by Cardiff. 3-word views for Middlesbrough. Matt says not good enough. Sedgefields says rinse and repeat. Aaron says getting very predictable. For Cardiff, Jimmy says decent away points. A very ponderous performance this for Middlesbrough. 75% possession, but really struggled to do much with it, which, considering what we've seen in Middlesbrough this season, Justin, is very, very surprising.
Yeah, it was a strange result in a sense that it was a bit of a flat performance. They looked threatening going forward at times, but just lacked the penetration, which again, going back to before December, you just never would have thought, because they looked unbeatable going forwards. It just feels like the balance isn't quite right between defending well and attacking with confidence. And I think Michael Carrick's stuck between not systems, but wherever he pushes his team forward, it opens them up, or wherever he just reins it back a little bit. It's slightly different here because they did dominate the ball, but they didn't have the same swagger we know that they can really hit games with, and I think that's the biggest disappointment here with Middlesbrough and all the creative talent that they have.
Well, they weren't great against Hull either for the most part on New Year's Day, and eventually got that late winner, but this was really poor. They never looked like scoring another after the first goal, and look, fair play to Cardiff for defending well here. Borough didn't really test them much though, and it feels like in the last few games they've gone from this sort of thrilling devil-may-care attitude team to being almost the exact opposite, which isn't what Michael Carrick wants his players to be doing. So I don't really know what's happened. Maybe the Christmas period has just caught up with them. Who knows? I mean, they're still in a great position with them sat fifth and none of the teams around them really making much ground, but they need to be a lot better than they were here, without a doubt. There could be bad news on the horizon with Borough, though, Justin, with them potentially losing two big players this month. Emmanuel Latte-Lath continues to be linked with multiple Premier League clubs. That's been happening for quite a while now. But the big development in the past few days surrounds the future of Ben Doak, obviously on loan from Liverpool, and it's reported that they would be willing to sell him for the right price, with Crystal Palace and Ipswich sniffing around him. That would, of course, mean him leaving Borough this month if it were to happen. So a nervy few weeks for Michael Carrick's side, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I think both links are quite interesting. I think Ben Doak, he needs time at Middlesbrough. I think he needs a season at the very least. We always see these types of players make the move too soon, and physically they just find it a struggle to adapt to the Premier League. And Latte-Lath, again, I find just very intriguing because he's a player I'm not completely sold on. He's gone long periods this season of not scoring. I know he's hit a bit of a purple patch probably since November onwards, but again, he's not a player that massively convinces me. I don't think he's clinical enough to play in the Premier League. I really don't. So I think if a good bid comes in for Latte-Lath, I would be inclined to accept it. It's just whether or not they've got a replacement lined up. But again, they are well stocked for options in the attack. I think Ben Doak would be the biggest blowout of those two.
I'd probably agree with that, Justin. I think Latte-Lath, if they get a profit on what they signed him for initially, I think it was 6 million. I've seen 12 million being the reported fee that they're possibly selling him for. I think I'd be taking that if I was Middlesbrough, maybe looking a bit higher than that, but you see my point. Ben Doak, I think, is a really, really big blow if he does go. They have been linked with Louis Barry, of course, but Doak, I think, has impressed me so much this season. Just really makes something out of nothing. He was the only one in that Cardiff game who really looked like causing any sort of problems in a Middlesbrough shirt. So that would be a really, really big blow. And I agree with you as well, Justin. I think I'm surprised Liverpool are considering selling him because I think he's such a massive, massive talent. But also, it may be a bit too soon for him to go to the Premier League when he's flourishing in the Championship right now. You don't want to disrupt that development, do you? So I would like him to continue playing at Borough because I think he's doing really, really well there. And I think it may be the best move for his career if he were to stay as well. So hopefully he doesn't go, but also because I really enjoy watching him play, Justin. And it would be a real shame for him to leave us so soon. And finally, we'll discuss West Brom, where a 92nd minute equaliser from Joe Allen saw Swansea snatch a late point against the Baggies. 1-1. It finished there. 3-word review for West Brom. Joe says, what a surprise. As we were saying on Friday, a bit of a strange one this, because Swansea boss Luke Williams has been linked with the West Brom job. He has said there's nothing to those rumours, and he even admitted his agent's been in bed ill for most of the Christmas period and had no idea what was going on when he was getting linked with another job. But Luke Williams got the point here and says he now wants to move on, which I think is probably for the best for all parties, isn't it?
Yeah, I want Luke Williams to stay at Swansea and succeed. I really do. I want to see his project through because I think there's a lot of we've seen a lot of development over the last 12 months, and there's still so much potential for more. And him leaving for West Brom, I think, would be disappointing to see that project finish. But again, it would be interesting to see how he would do at West Brom if the move ever materialised. As I say, I don't think it will now, but the links need to be quashed and move on for the good of both the seasons. I think Chris Brunt again is still doing a good job. So I think the hierarchy at West Brom probably are not in a rush here. Just one thing I need to mention about this game, the chants about Joe Allen, I thought were brilliant, in which West Brom fans were chanting, "Joe Allen, we thought you were dead." After he scored, before he scored, sorry, and then Swansea fans then replied saying, Joe Allen, you thought he was dead, to West Brom fans. So Joe Allen getting caught in a crossfire there.
It's good stuff. That's really, really good stuff. It's like what I was saying earlier about Rob Holding, Justin. It's like Lord Lucan walking into the pub. We should get a team of players everyone just completely forgot we're still playing. So we'll get Rob Holding, Joe Allen. Who else is there? There must be some other players who have just completely forgot existed.
Yeah, you put yourself on a spot there.
Yeah, but I'll come back to you on that. I'll bring a list of players I completely
Get
forgot.
the listeners to
still playing
submit
football.
them, yeah.
Yeah, listeners, if you want to chip in, secondtierpod@gmail.com, let us know. Any players who you were surprised to find out were still playing football. And I'll put together an 11 for Thursday's episode. There you go. That's something to look forward to. So yeah, a sigh of relief from Luke Williams in this game, and a sigh of relief for Justin Peach, because if Joe Allen hadn't have scored that equaliser, it would have meant I was only 1 point behind in the previous show predictions, because unfortunately, ladies and gents, he's drawn a blank again this week, while I would have got a full house if it wasn't for that Allen equaliser. So, still only 3 points behind Peachy, because at the moment I'm feeling quite confident, because you look like you're bottling it, mate.
I would have been further ahead of you if Stoke put away some chances. Come on, Ryan, we can't live life, and if some buts, get on with it.
You're right, you can't. What I can say is not an if or but is the fact that you have only got 2 points in the last 4 preview shows now. So you are having a right little shaky period, aren't you?
I've been focusing on friends and family over Christmas. I've been enjoying myself. I've not been married to the job.
And that's why you've got a loser mentality for considering your friends and family. Pathetic. Justin, let's go to the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter, because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Champo. So the first question we asked was this. It's a pretty straightforward one. Who's winning the league? Burnley, Leeds, Sheffield United, Sunderland.
I think Leeds will win it, but Burnley's defence is convincing me that they're really close. I
would probably still say Leeds at this stage. If they change goalkeeper, then maybe I'll be even more convinced. 46% of people said Leeds United, 20% said Burnley, 19% said Sheffield United, 15% said Sunderland. Which of these strikers would you most like at your club, Justin? Tom Cannon, Emmanuel Latte-Lath, Josh Maja, or Haji Wright?
Oh, it's between Tom Cannon and Haji Wright. Oh, I'd go Haji Wright.
I would probably go Haji Wright as well, although maybe I'll go Emmanuel Latte-Lath. I know we were just saying earlier that he's still got a bit more convincing to do at championship level before he goes to the Premier League, but I think he is still a very, very good striker. 38% of people said Latte-Lath. 24% said Tom Cannon, 24% said Josh Maja, 14% said Haji Wright. So Haji Wright's not got a good look in there at all. And finally, could you replicate that Josh Windass goal from his own half? Yes or no?
Yes.
We need to make this happen, don't we? Well, Justin, you might be quite happy with the results of this poll. 58% of people said no. 42% said they reckon they could do it.
Back yourself, guys. Come on. If you can kick a ball more than 60 yards, you can do it. You can.
Well, still, I mean, Hillsborough's quite a big pitch, and you have got a professional goalkeeper to try and lob at the same time. So, again, other things you're not necessarily considering here, Justin. But yeah, that's
I'm just going to
you believe
just before
in
you move on. Just before you move on, there are variables you've got to consider. Yes, the pitch is bigger. Yes, there's a professional goalkeeper. Josh Windass kicks a ball every day. It's his profession, right? If I can do it in those circumstances, then we should completely remove goals from your own half from any conversation. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. A lot to process there, which I still think is just outrageous. But anyway,